the global financial crisis, Europe was hit the worst. Ireland, a country of 4.5 million people, is still coping with the effects of negligent banking practices. Now, just to give you an idea of the corruption surrounding the Irish banking system, when asked how Anglo-Irish Bank had come up with its bailout figure, the bank's executive said, "I picked it out of my arse." That's a direct quote. Because of these nefarious banks, austerity measures have severely impacted millions of Irish. And one political party is fighting back against the financial system that's led to the foreclosure of thousands of Irish homes. The Direct Democracy Party has been around only for 3 years, but it's already gaining huge momentum across the country. The party's leader, Ben Gilroy, joined me earlier to talk about his political platform and why he's being persecuted by the Irish media and government.
Direct democracy is where people can initiate referendum. Most countries, the people in the country can't do that. We had it in our first constitution, and them rights were taken out then when our second constitution came in. We want them articles put back. It'd be a bit like the Swiss model. The Swiss model can initiate referendum on anything they wish once they gather enough signatures.
And what is the benefit if people don't understand really the process of referendums?
Okay, well, the process that we have is representative democracy. So that's where a guy comes. In Ireland, they generally lie to you during the election. You vote for him. You can't change him for the next 5 years. He breaks every promise known to man. I mean, if you take our last government that are now in power, these guys said they wouldn't bail out any more bondholders or rogue banks, and have actually, rolled back on all them promises, and are actually bailing banks and rogue traders out more so than the last government did. And we have to put up with that for the next 5 years. We're a powerless nation.
And most people who don't know a lot about Irish politics, can you tell them why the Labour and Fine Gael parties are not properly leading the country?
Well, some time ago, around 2008, 2009 in this country, when the banks basically failed all over Europe, it was kicked off by Anglo-Irish Bank in this country, who were probably the most criminal of all banks. They broke every liquidity law that carries jail sentences. Instead, our government at Fianna Fáil at the time gave them all big bonuses. Our regulator, who should have been done for treason, got a 600,000 payoff as well as a big pension. Our new government, who are now in power, Fine Gael and Labour, of course, were saying all the right things before they got into power. And then when they got into power, they're actually worse than the last crowd.
Sounds like this country, Ben. What are the main policies that your party would implement if you had representation in Parliament?
Well, first of all, we would, you see, rather than saying burn bondholders, that seems to be a very populist thing to say. What we would suggest in direct democracy, that we would suspend all capital and interest payments until there's a full legal review to see if Ireland had any moral or lawful obligation to pay back gamblers on a stock exchange. So it doesn't sound so crazy when you say let's have a legal review about it, because I believe it's classed as an odious debt in international law.
And Ben, the Irish media has tried to connect you with the Freemen on the Land movement, a group that the FBI has deemed a terrorist movement. Why do you think that they've tried to link you to this group?
I think because I shot the fame one time when, you see, there's a fallout from this bailout in our country, because we're such a small country. We only have 4.5 million people. So for your viewers, to put that into context, we're slightly larger than Liverpool or Manchester. And they've taken 120 billion out of our economy to refinance the banks and pay off bond gamblers on a stock exchange. And then they've asked the Irish people, when they've paid back this money, when they've taken this money out of the economy, to continue paying your mortgage payments with no money in the economy to pay it. So the fallout of that is now you have repossessions in this country where sheriffs come with the Gardaí, which is our police force, to try evict families out of their homes, and they're not guilty of anything. Now, unlike most countries, in our constitution, the family home is protected and is inviolable save as to law. and it clearly states it's not positive law, you know, so people who don't know what that is, that would be acts and statutes. So our family, because our Irish history is used to oppression from British forces from years ago and stuff like that, so it's enshrined in our constitution. So I became quite famous from a video, if anybody wants to see it on YouTube. It's called Constitution House Sheriff.
Well, we actually have a clip of that right now. Let's check it out.
Okay.
The registrar gives the order,
yes.
Then he puts on his sheriff's hat and tells you go and repossess the home.
Exactly,
and you think that's fair.
That's right.
And lawful.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm telling you it's not. And I'm asking the Gardaí today to uphold common law, which they're sworn to do. And this is not common law. Now, also under the Constitution, a man's house is inviolable under the Constitution except as to law. What law did this man break?
I'm not saying he broke any law.
Right.
At the end of this clip, you actually forced this deputy sheriff to leave. Why did you take this action? And do you think if more people simply stood up to the immoral home foreclosures that we would see a change in policy?
Yes, you absolutely would, because if it became less attractive and harder for banks to take homes and businesses back, it wouldn't be financially viable, and that's all they're worried about, is the dollar, the bottom line, the profit. So if you made it unprofitable for them, now we have stopped the number of auctions in this country as well, because look, we have a moral duty to stand up against tyranny, you know, and that's our moral duty. We must do this. And that clip there, see where the guy, he said he was the sheriff. This is another con. In our country, the sheriff can be also the judge. They double job, right? Get this. So this guy who actually signed the order, he was the judge on that day in the courthouse that deciding to take this man's home. Then he steps down and puts on a sheriff's uniform and comes out to repossess the home, making money on that as well. I mean, you wouldn't see this in a hilly-dilly movie.
Well, let's talk about your current legal predicament. You're facing trespassing charges for occupying a farm. You allege that this is a trumped-up charge meant to discredit you. Why?
Well, I live at home with my young family, and I drop my kids to school every day. And apparently they can't serve a summons on me. So what they done was they summoned me to court through our national newspapers. So if that's not political assassination, saying I was criminally trespassing on some lands. Now, I mean, you know, if they really are interested in criminal activity, they could do a lot worse than look away from me and look elsewhere. And
I know that this movement's picking up a lot of traction across the country. Talk about how many people are getting involved and how can more people get involved if they're interested.
Sure. In our country, we've set up directdemocracy.ie, and we've several counties and constituencies then. So, I mean, if you were to look on Facebook, you would see these names probably mean nothing to you now, but it'd be Direct Democracy Drogheda, Direct Democracy Offaly, and they're all the areas in Ireland. And it's, you know, considering we only launched just before Christmas, and in a by-election, I bet the Labour Party, who are sitting in government right now, I bet them in the by-election. And considering that the main media even completely ignored me, it wasn't a bad result.
Yes, they tend to ostracize, minimize the true third-party representation across the board. Ben, thank you so much for being the change. Ben Gilroy, leader of Direct Democracy Ireland.
Thanks, folks.